Hi guys, Jack Reviews here, and I'm back once again with another podcast-style review of Series 11, Episode 2, The Ghost Monument. This episode, I see quite divided in opinions across the board. Like, I saw Greg Austin from Class on Twitter say that he really didn't like this episode, and he's kind of getting attacked in the replies there. But I myself, what did I think of this episode? I liked it. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was honestly better than last week's as well, and you will know that I really enjoyed last week's episode. While with the Ghost Monument, it started with this really interesting concept of the Doctor and the companions being thrown into like this galactic game kind of thing. That was a fascinating concept to me. It really reminded me a lot of Keys of Marinus, or just those early 60s serials where they're just very experimental. Art Malik's character, Ilin, he really reminded me of the Celestial Toymaker a little bit. It was just like this really lovely tribute to those character-driven 60s stories where they kind of face these little dilemmas, and they do go through quite a few dilemmas. I can see this like being maybe, you take the elements from this story, you've got a four-parter on your hands. It was super interesting in the way that we were given this almost kind of simple concept, and what you have to do with that is to continue with character stuff and in order to flesh out the story and actually make it worthwhile, and I feel that they actually done that completely and utterly perfectly. So first, the episode starts off with the title sequence. Yes, let's talk about the title sequence. The title sequence, I can honestly say, is possibly one of the best title sequences the show has honestly ever had. It's so crisp in its visuals. It looks like they've actually put so much time and effort into making this. And yeah, like since Jodie was announced, it's been over a year. So yeah, you've had the time and it looks absolutely fantastic. The theme, to hear the actual full theme now is amazing. The way that it starts off with this almost mellow kind of creepy vibe, very reminiscent of the 1960s, and with that kind of warbling sphere in the center of the screen, it really reminded me of the McCoy era, especially the way it was purple, and it's just a fascinating visual, and the way it then explodes when we almost get the bass drop kind of thing. It winds down and it storms back up to give you the main part of the theme. And it was, honest to God, I put on Twitter, it is like the McCoy intro had sex with the Pertwee intro. It's honestly perfect. I do say the Pertwee intro more because it is I would say a lot more reminiscent of that, the shapes and just the mirroring, and two intros to get inspiration from. I think you've chose some of the best there, and easily some of the most iconic in Doctor Who history. The title sequence just gets a massive thumbs up from me. Little nitpick, a little bit short, but it is a thing now, I think, with TV shows to not have these really long title sequences. So they're trying to be modern, and I just think it works. It really blasts you into the story, and the way that it started at the beginning of the story, very much like the classic series. I actually can't really remember the last time we had a intro that starts right at the beginning of a story. Really exciting. That's going to be absolutely amazing to watch on the DVD, especially if you kind of binge watch this series. It's going to really feel like this classic serial, especially kind of the way that these first two stories are connected. As I said in the last episode, I didn't have a problem with that the title sequence was absent last time, as I did like the whole concept of that The Woman Who Fell to Earth was a almost series, not a series, a pre-title sequence to the series. Again, this is kind of this off-the-cuff review podcast style thing, so if I slip up, please excuse me. Again, I didn't mind it because I really like the concept. The concept doesn't work when you have kind of the end titles at the end, because that kind of does put a stamp at the end of that story. If I was re-editing that, I would have actually ended The Woman Who Fell to Earth with the intro, but with and then it kind of morphs into the end title sequence and title credits. But again, I can't complain because it was well worth the wait. The logo looks fab in this kind of almost bronze. It's different to the main logo, this fiery orange, but I really love it. It's absolutely superb. I love the way that it kind of ends with that Ron Grainer sting. We've not had that sting in a long, long time. I don't think we've ever really had it in the intro, ever really. And it has been a long time since I've had the sting that's usually on the end of the credits. So that is a welcome addition, especially in the main portion of the introduction titles. So yeah, title sequence gets an absolute 10 out of 10 from me. Where will it go on my title sequences list? Well, I will have a video of that in the next coming months, I feel. So the episode starts off with the Doctor in space with the companions, and I really love this because it's very gritty space travel, a lot like Series 1 was with Captain Jack, in the fact that space travel, it's not pretty, things go wrong, and I really love that the Doctor was just storming around this room, just trying to organise everything. The way I can kind of grasp of how they survived this is they were kind of almost rebuilt, and the episode starts off with this very gritty pumping of medical instruments and just these fluid links almost. It was very haunting. It very much reminds me of, if anyone's ever played Star Wars The Force Unleashed, when Starkiller's thrown out of space by Darth Vader and he's rebuilt again by Vader. It very much reminds me of that. It's gritty and it's not pretty. With Graham with the light in his eyes, it gave this such unearthly feel to the story. I don't know why I keep kind of expecting all of these episodes to kind of be quite happy and very joyful, which is the atmosphere that we did get from the trailers. And I kind of went into this episode not really. I was excited, but I also wasn't, because I didn't know what to expect at all. The only thing that I kind of maybe had was this was going to be a bit more of a cheerful story, and it's just going to be a casual romp. But no, they actually made this episode stand out on its own, and again, gritty space travel. It's not pretty, shit happens, and that's what I really love about this episode. It really does delve down to what RTD wanted to establish of Doctor Who and science fiction in the 21st century, and it feels like the Moffat era went back in time a little bit. They tried to be modern, and it kind of just failed. But with this story, it completely was modern. It was a tribute to classic sci-fi. It was a tribute to the 1960s, especially Keys of Marinus, as I did mention before. Like, we've had Doctor Who versus the Predator last week, and the Keys of Marinus 2 Electric Boogaloo this week. So I'm just overwhelmed, I guess, with just surprise. We are introduced to Angstrom and Epso. Angstrom is played by very popular actress Susan Lynch, and I really liked her acting in the story. The characters of Epso and Angstrom are meant to be absolute kind of arseholes, and you really do get that from Angstrom at the end. And Epso, played by Sean Dooley, another really, really good actor from Yorkshire as well. It is a very much Yorkshire team up this series. Epso very reminds me of Salbon Glitz, but without the glitz. The glitz and the glamour. It just really reminds me of just this kind of scummy space pirate guy who would sell you for a spoon, a lot like what Sablon Glitz was. And I do really think with Sean Dooley's character Epso, there was a little bit of inspiration to there. And the story was they were thrown into a race, and they must also work together, but get there first in order to get to the Ghost Monument. I saw somebody predict instantly what the Ghost Monument was on Twitter, and I thought that completely makes sense, and yes, it was the TARDIS. Again, that was kind of in my mind going in, and when they were going, what does this monument look like? I thought that was a really nice twist, and it gave hope and a better goal towards the story for the Doctor. Everybody had a goal. The Doctor knows what it is. They need to get back to the ship. The companions want to go home, like Ian and Barbara, again, 1960s. And Angstrom and Epso, they want to win. They are in this to win the main prize. And they will do anything to win on this hostile planet. Desolation, I think it was called, and that is a wow name for a planet. It's very impactful on this planet. It has this water will eat you alive, and there's these robots that are scattered about which killed the previous inhabitants. And this whole environment of this planet can kill you at any second, whether it's exposed to the sun, no water. You can't win. It's almost like you just can't win. And in between these little bits, we do get human moments. I loved Graham's talk with Ryan about Grace. That was quite hard hitting, especially if you have lost a grandparent. And I feel that's what this series really wants to do for relatable trauma, almost. And Graham is really wanting to get to know Ryan, but Ryan wants absolutely none of it. Understandable, he's still torn up completely. And I really just loved that conversation. I also loved when they were just all talking on the boat as they are walking, on their way to the monument on the lake, and the Doctor was just like, well, we'll get some rest. And we really did get motivation from each character why they are like that. Epso was not an arsehole because he was an arsehole. He's an arsehole because he was brought up to be an arsehole. He's not a one-dimensional villain. He actually has a level of nuance to his character in almost 3 dimensions. The Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, still fantastic in the story. I loved her performance. She was really getting tested, I feel, with all of the technobabble, especially when she's telling Yasmin how to help land the ship. And Yasmin didn't really get much to do in the story, but I still do think Mandip Gill plays the character amazingly. So we maybe will get a few more stories with Yasmin that focus on her character. But back to Jodie, you really just see her as the Doctor now. The lines, I think, are great. There's just so much thought being put into the series, and there's just so much I like about it. Her acting performance is just so refreshing, just in television in general. She really brings this life into your Sunday night. Sunday nights are usually very drab and not much on besides gritty dramas. And she brings life into this kind of gritty environment. And she's the moral high ground, saying your mother was wrong. Very strong line. I really feel this is what this series really does. As I said in my last review, this series doesn't focus on these big massive speeches. It focuses on impactful lines that stay with you, and that whole section stayed with me. At the end, when they do get to the monument, they are fucked over, and Art Malik's character Ilan, again, evil bastard, but you also don't almost understand his character because he's gone through this before, and he's just like, well, I've gone through this before, why shouldn't you? He leaves the Doctor and the companions, and we really just feel, oh shit, because there's no music. If this is Moffat, the violin's going, you have Mr. Krabs in the corner of the world's smallest violin. The lack of music in the scene, it really gave this, do you ever do something wrong, or make a mistake, and then you just get that really gut-wrenching feeling in your stomach of just, oh shit? That's what you feel in this scene, and I really think that's just how powerful the direction of this series really, really is. It was just superb, this episode. It was stunning. And they're left on this planet, and there's no hope because they can't get back. Art Malik's character's gone, everyone's gone, and they're just left there, and it's haunting. It really is haunting. Like, what would you do if you're lost on an alien planet? I'm sure we've all ended up in town somewhere, stranded. There's always someone to come get you, not on this desolate planet of nothing. And then we hear the engines, the TARDIS, and that was such a heroic moment. You were expecting it, but it really had this big grand feel, and it materialises. And we get that beautiful shot of the TARDIS on the cliff. It looks like a TV movie box, just from the angle of it. And this police box, it's very adaptable. Again, it's got the elements of the TV movie with the lamp, kind of the broadness of it and the height, and along with the reverse pull to open sound, which I really love. That's really grown on me for this box. And I love the orange windows on it as well. That's a little nice hark back to the Eccleston and Tennant era. It also reminds me of the 60s box. It really encapsulates everything that that made previous TARDIS fantastic. and it may be the best new series box. I'll have to see it in action later this series in order to give my full judgment, but I love the exterior. And then we go into the interior. I don't want to say I hate it. Like, I spent all year avoiding that horrible leaked photo that I've heard of. It's not lit properly. I've saw the one of when Jodie kind of steps into the box and it's got the brown background behind her, which I really like that part of the TARDIS. That's quite fun. I really, if you on the Doctor YouTube channel, they actually explain the direction behind that, of being like in a tree canopy when you look up and you can just see little glimpses of the sky. I really liked that reasoning. I just hate the natural look of it. It reminds me of the Matt Smith TARDIS, man. Like the Series 5 to 7 Part 1, that TARDIS, and that I think is my least favourite TARDIS ever. And this, the Matt Smith one, but this one, it just really reminds me of it. I don't like the Sand Timer. I don't like that crystal mini TARDIS. That's probably the worst part of it for me. And I really do not like the custard cream dispenser. That is the most Matt Smith part of it that reminds me of it. It's like the what do we call it? The ketchup and mustard dispensers. That's what it reminds me of. I like my TARDIS to be scientific, not something delved out of fantasy, I guess is a way to explain it. The crystals, okay, we actually did, the crystals are something, a part of the series. I was actually a bit weirded out they weren't actually in the TARDIS sequence. I was like, what was the point of having all that marketing with the crystals? But it reflects the TARDIS, and I think that's fine. I just don't like it. I don't really like the big column in the middle of it, mainly because it's opaque, and it's that means that I think it's just going to be very awkward for characters to look over and talk to each other in a way. It's not like when it's transparent or when it's short. You can either look through it or look over it. Oh, it's short. It's very weird. Maybe it will grow on me. The only part of it I absolutely adore is the way it's got the 3 sides of the box on the entranceway. I love that. That is, it's literally like you're going into you're breaking the 4th wall of the universe. I love that, and I love how it's all white on the inside. It's beautiful, stunning. The rest of it, I don't know. It's just we had a perfect TARDIS with the Capaldi out, and then we kind of go to this more smaller TARDIS. I see what they were going for. Not my cup of tea. I prefer the TARDIS to be something more designed than grown. So I don't know. I will be. I can't judge it properly yet, but there's not much I like about it. It's quite a bit. It's a very tall set. Like that kind of like these Doctor Who Confidential clips are bloody amazing that they've been doing. They explain the process of TARDIS. I'm like, yeah, I really like the thought process of it. I don't know. Jodie's just a very scientific doctor. I don't really know if the growth of the TARDIS kind of suits her, but we will have to see it actually be used in action. It's very dark as well, a lot like the early Eccleston TARDIS. I love the orange lights. The orange light's nice. I love those little kind of blue lights and the hexagons. I quite like them. And I do like the kind of wheels, almost the cogs at the entrance of the door. It's very Invasion of Time-esque. The rest, it's just not for me, unfortunately. But again, we will get to see more of it in future episodes. So, rating for the story. There was not... you have this really interesting concept, and it then your job as the writer to fill it with interesting things, such as character moments and fantastic direction, and I really think they absolutely nailed that. It was a 60s inspired story, and I loved it. I even liked it better than Woman Who Fell to Earth, as I said at the beginning of this review. Some of the most stunning some of the most stunning shots is the one that stood out for me is Jodie and Yasmin in the ship when it's tearing itself apart before they crash. I swear that, because I've only watched this episode once, I swear that was one continuous shot, and that is a testament to the acting of these people. There was Sean Dooley played his part perfectly. Jodie knew what she was doing, and Mandip Gill played her part perfectly. It was honestly amazing to just view. The CGI and effects I thought were great. The cloth monsters, like the Dementors, weren't that good, but again, all the budget's gone to that intro, hasn't it? So, a stunning looking story. I'm sure there's going to be more to find on rewatches. So, with this story, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I really loved it. I don't think you can get an 8 out of 10 because I think it really just pushed the limitations of that story and got as far as you could explore with that kind of in 45 or 50 minutes. It just about got to what you can do. It's like with Keys of Marinus, every episode was like a little standalone episode of that little arc. So I think 8 out of 10 solid rating for this episode, and I really loved it. One thing I think's interesting is there looks to be a story arc that may be going on, and it's when the kind of I'm just going to call them the cloth monsters. They probably had a name. It refers to the Doctor as the timeless child, and the Doctor says, "What can you see?" And that really makes me think that a bit of the Doctor's past is maybe going to come up. We'll have to see with that one. I'm very interested to see where that goes. Who knows? It could refer to Yasmin. Her character might have something going on that the Doctor just knows about. Who knows? I'm really interested in that. If it was a little nod to the Doctor's past, bloody chilling. Really loved that. It really sent a shiver down my spine. But that seems to be what we have going. Oh, and the little Stenzar reference I thought was great as well. It really had some impact to their appearance and validity to their threat. Not like the Atraxia where they just go fuck off and they never come back. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for this story. I thought it was superb. It's magical. It embraced Doctor Who, and it really was Doctor Who in the 21st century. I really just love Doctor Who Confidential from 2005. They just keep saying that. Anyway, I'll be back next week for Rosa. That's a very similar sound to Rosa, isn't it? Rosa, where they go to Rosa Parks. Oh, by the way, I just want to add this thing. I really don't like how they're doing these trailers at the end of the story, where it's a mini trailer that will be on BBC iPlayer, and then an advert trailer for next time. Just edit it into one trailer, man. Why is that so hard? I don't like that. It's like they've got the social media one and the BBC iPlayer trailer. I don't know. Hopefully people don't know what I'm about. I just don't like that. But next week does look interesting. I'm a little bit disappointed it's not a pure historical, but there is some interest there, and the battle to save time. So, I'm back next Sunday. Have a good week.